Alrighty, I'm Dr. John and welcome back to another weekly injury report here at Mobility Doc, your home for all of the recent injury news in the NFL, where you come for the injury information but stay to relish in my pain as a Jets fan. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Unfortunately, there's a lot to break down for one team in particular. The Detroit Lions gave us a great game against the Buffalo Bills. However, they went into that game on Sunday with 13 defensive players on IR, which is insane. However, it did not get better. Cornerback Carlton Davis III fractured his jaw. It is unclear if he's going to be out for the season or what his course of action will be, but Khalil Dorsey has a season-ending ankle injury and was placed on IR. Similarly, Aleem McNeil, I might be pronouncing that wrong, tore his ACL, the defensive tackle for the Lions. He is also out for the season. And finally, the Knuckles portion of the Sonic and Knuckles tandem in that Detroit Lions backfield, which in my opinion is one of, if not the best duo tandem nicknames to ever be created. David Montgomery sprained his MCL and is done for the season. In positive news, which doesn't seem like there could be with all of those players going down and 13 already hurt, Aiden Hutchinson, the star defensive end for the Detroit Lions, is on track to make a return if the Lions make it to the Super Bowl. So that could be a huge get back for them, but they got to get to that point first. So unfortunately, most of those guys that I just named on the Lions are going to be added to that IR list if they're not already there, but at least some good news with Hutchinson. Alvin Kamara, I feel like I jinxed him again. First McCaffrey, then Kamara. I might have some bad luck with running backs, but Alvin Kamara went down in the middle of last week's game, the running back for the Saints, with a adductor injury. It is confirmed that it's his adductor. His status is unclear for Monday night, which is huge because this is, if you're in it, this is fantasy championship week for a lot of people. Maybe you're playing in the third place game. Regardless of what it might be, Kamara's been pretty consistent all year long for putting up some points, and that could be a huge loss on our end and for the Saints offense as a whole. If he is unable to play, Williams as well as second-year backup Miller will be the two guys to replace his workload. I feel like we've got a lot of kicker news on this podcast and show recently, especially over the past couple of weeks. It's unfortunate to add another one, but the kicker for the Falcons, I'm going to butcher his name most likely, but Younghoe Koo has a right hip injury that supposedly was bothering him earlier, and he's been placed on IR. Firmly ending his season. George Pickens, the wide receiver for the Steelers, who is known for his incredible acrobatic high point catches, as well as getting into fights, has missed the past couple of games with a hamstring injury. He did positional drills on Tuesday and Wednesday, but at this point his status is still unclear. That's certainly something to monitor, as the Steelers offense definitely misses him. He would have made a big difference in that Eagles game. But if you have him in fantasy, he's unable to play, and you're looking for a tight end, Freiermuth has been on a tear recently as a go-to option for Wilson. Even if Pickens does come back, I'd expect Wilson to continue to look Freiermuth's way as a little bit of a security blanket there. The big guy that I've not mentioned yet injury-wise is going to be our deep dive for this week, which is Patrick Mahomes. If you're unaware, he went down with a high ankle sprain in the fourth quarter of that game against the Browns this past week. It's been confirmed it's a high ankle sprain. And as of right now, it's unclear as to whether or not he's going to play. The Chiefs are preparing for this upcoming week like he is going to play, but high ankle sprains can be a little bit trickier than just a typical ankle sprain, and I'll get into that reason why in a second. But if he's unable to play, Carson Wentz, remember him, Philly fans, will be starting for the Chiefs instead. So when we look at a high ankle sprain, the reason why it's a little bit different than just your typical ankle sprain is that a high ankle sprain involves a sprain of the ligaments that connect the bottom end of the tibia and fibula that connect with the talus of your ankle and make up that talocrural joint, or your ankle joint that we commonly think of. The way that this most often occurs is when your foot is extremely externally rotated with or without an extreme dorsiflexion, which is when your toes come up towards you. And the reason why is the way that talus, which is the bone that coincides with your tibia and fibula to make your ankle joint, the way that it's shaped is that it's domed over the top and it's a little bit larger in the front. So when you go to bring your foot up, what's happening is that's actually starting to gap a little bit between the two bones there. That space we call the mortise. So when your ankle is then forcibly dorsiflex, and with that additional external rotation, you're like really gapping the space between your tibia and fibula, which then sprains those ligaments. And you might have some other injuries to the other ligaments surrounding the ankle, such as the ATFL, the PTFL, or the deltoid ligament. But we're focusing more so on those ligaments that connect the tibia and fibula. With a high ankle sprain, it's usually a little bit more common to have less swelling than your common ankle sprains. But what's different is that you have usually a pretty significant loss of plantar flexion, or pointing your toes down, as well as the fact that it's really, really painful to bear weight. And that's what makes this injury really complicated for athletes, particularly football players, which is one of the more common sports that this occurs in. Because when you're looking to run and cut and sprint, you obviously not only need to bear weight, but you need to be able to plantar flex and push off of your toes and foot to drive yourself forward. Imaging can be done for this injury if there's concern for a fracture, or just to look at the structural aspect of that joint and between the bones as well. Initially, for treatment, what they'll do is you're going to try and reduce inflammation, improve the range of motion, particularly into that plantar flexion if it's limited, but in any direction or plane of motion that you have the most limitation, and obviously trying to improve pain. From there, you're going to progress to strengthening exercises and working to stabilize that ankle in different positions, especially dynamically with that muscular support. Continuing to work on range of motion and improving your balance and endurance on that ankle to avoid re-injury, which is the most important thing, because once you have an ankle sprain or you've experienced one, you are just more likely to have one. Mahomes, in fact, has a history of ankle sprains and high ankle sprains as a whole. In 2019, I think in the first week of that season, he had an ankle injury. And then similarly, more recently, in 2022, I believe it was actually a high ankle sprain that he suffered during the playoffs before the AFC Championship game. He obviously played in that and then played in the Super Bowl against the Eagles, which I'm sorry to bring that up. Again, Carson Wentz and then this, that's a double whammy, but the Eagles lost. If Mahomes is able to play from a fantasy perspective, he hasn't been putting up the same Mahomes-y numbers that we're used to this year. You know, the touchdowns, the passing yards, it's been a little bit tougher for him this season. So what I would expect to see if he is able to play is something similar to the Patrick Mahomes version of 2022, where he isn't able to move as well. He's not going to be able to push off and drive off that foot as well as he would be able to if he didn't sprain that ankle. Obviously, it depends on the severity of the injury, but that's something to pay attention to because he won't be as mobile. That offensive line is going to have to really hold up, give him a clean pocket to be able to get the ball down the field. It may impact his throwing motion, as when he shifts his weight, he might experience some pain as well with that during the throwing motion. So something to pay attention to, especially just in regards of whether or not he's going to play. But if he is going to play, it's Patrick Mahomes. You can never count him out. I wouldn't not start him. So if I have him, I don't have any other options. Absolutely, I'm going to start him. But he's probably not going to put up the same amount of numbers or the same level of numbers fantasy-wise or statistically in the game that we've come to expect from him. Now that I've said this, it's Patrick Mahomes. He'll probably throw for 450 yards and 4 touchdowns, and I'll eat my words. I'm fine with that. But that's something to take into account as you're setting your lineups this week. So I hope you guys enjoyed this weekly video. As always, click that bell, subscribe. Let me know down in the comments what you thought, anything that you want me to go over. For everyone that is in the championship or the third place game or still in the playoffs, best of luck. If unfortunately you didn't make it, hopefully the Fantasy League punishment isn't too bad. Hopefully you didn't get dead last. And there's always next year. All right. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.